Still don't want to do it. So as you guys might be able to tell, today we were working on the fenders for our 56 Chevy. If you guys have ever priced fenders out for these cars, they are absolutely insane, almost as much as I paid for this car, just for one, and we need two. So we are not on the Warren Buffett budget, more like the Sizzler Buffett. That's what I'm working with. So rather than buying two new fenders, we're going to do our best to patch these and get these looking a little bit better than they are now, so they can go on that car out there, which if you guys have watched the last couple of videos, that car has really started to come together, and we've kind of worked our way from the back forward, and we are up to the fenders now. So that's what we're going to start doing. I'm not going to bore you guys with sanding, grinding. If you've watched 2 minutes of any of my last 20 videos, you've pretty much seen it all. So we'll get to work on this. We'll get this down to bare metal right about now. All right, so we got this thing stripped down like the copper in a house on the bad side of town. All the paint is gone. Did find a couple of problem areas, and a common one on all of these cars is the eyebrow around the headlight. Somebody already did a repair there. It looks decent enough where we might be able to work with it. I don't think I'm going to have to cut it back out. If you guys remember when we took this fender off, I don't know if I put it in the video, but when we pulled this little slice of heaven off this car, this fender mount right here stayed on the body while the fender came off. So I cleaned that up. I have to re-weld that. There's another area on the lip on the back that's going to require some attention. And then obviously we have the bottom corner down there as well. Another problem area on all of these cars. This one is absolutely no exception. I do have the patch panel for that. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to weld the fender bracket on. I'm going to take care of that lip on the inside that I mentioned. And then we'll take some measurements and we'll start getting that patch panel welded in on the bottom. Oh, no, yeah, if you guys thought that the front side was bad, check out the back. I did pay a little extra for the aquarium edition, but I think it was worth it. Okay, I've got my bracket clamped in place. This was the other area of that lip. And as you can see on the inside, we stripped that down as well. Once I'm done with the welding on this, we'll go ahead and coat and paint the inside. This way, hopefully this thing will last for years to come. So let's weld this bracket on, fix this lip. Then we're actually gonna toss this on the car, do like a quick fit up. I wanna get a measurement for how long that patch panel in the corner is supposed to be. And then maybe we can get this thing in color today. So this damage right here is what we're going to be attempting to fix next. Now I could cut a patch and weld it in there, but I want to try and maintain this body line on the edge right here. So instead of cutting a patch out, I'm going to very slowly kind of just fill this hole up with weld. And as we go, I'll clean it off with the blowgun to help cool it, prevent any warping. And then each little bit that we go, I'll just come in and I'll knock it down nice and flush with the right angle grinder. And hopefully that will allow us to close this hole up, maintain the body line, and we'll have one more thing fixed on this fender. All right, as you're going, it's always careful to mind that body line, especially when you're getting that close to it. We want to maintain that nice straight edge on this fender as best we can. So that's why it always pays for stuff like this to go slow. Obviously, if you have room on the back to get to that area and smooth that out as well, great. If not, like I said, this is going to be on the inside of the fender. It won't be the prettiest thing in the world back there, but it's not just lathered full of seam sealer or Bondo or anything like that. There will be metal there. So again, not the perfect fix, but it's not the worst one either, all right? So we'll give this some time to cool. I'll hit it with the blowgun, and we'll continue working our way down through the damage. All right, so we got that done. Not perfect. I definitely still need some practice on that method, but the hole is gone, which is the most important thing. I did notice one other spot, or two other spots down here. Not really sure if this was a piece of trim that went here or what the deal is. It almost kind of looks like two rivets, but we're going to clean these out a little bit better. We'll weld those up, grind them flush, so we can call that corner done. After that, I think it's time to hang this on the car, take some measurements of where our patch needs to end so it meets up with the rocker panel. And we get to do this pretty much all over again because this car has two fenders. Okay, so to mock up our fenders, I'm just going to clamp the radiator support to the frame for now, just to get it close, so that we can sort of eyeball where this needs to go. Now I have the correct hardware kit for both the rad support and the fenders coming. Those should hopefully be here early this week. But for now, vice grip will do just fine. Okay. So I got that clamped down. I have the holes on the rad support aligned with the holes on the frame itself, just to keep that in place. And I guess I'll go grab our fender, line that up, and see where we stand with that. And every time I work on this car, I just want it done more and more. So it actually, just the more pieces we finish, the more it looks like it is supposed to. All right, so it's very rough placement as far as where the fender is supposed to be. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the center of one of those trim holes on the fender down to the rocker, just because every patch panel that I've worked with so far is just a little bit off. And knowing what I know now, I would have taken a little bit more time to measure and make sure that they were cut properly before I welded them in. But we're going to do it on this fender. So I'll grab a tape measure, we'll get a rough measurement, grab the patch panel out of my car, and then we can start cutting the rest of that fender, positioning that panel, get that welded up. I still have to make the brace on the lower portion where it bolts to the rocker, so we'll take care of that. Definitely motivates me a little bit more seeing it like this. It'll look even better once it's in one color. Okay, so I trimmed my patch. When you get these, they have almost like a beveled edge to them, and there's about an inch of material that you can slide underneath. I usually find that gets to be more in the way than it actually helps, at least for me. Especially with the fender, because we have, I cut around what was left of the factory brace, and then there were two spot welds on the side. So I separated those, I ground this surface flush, I left what I could of the brace itself So that will give us a little bit of support on this side, and then we just have to clamp this side. So I took my measurements, like I said, from the center line of that hole for the trim, trimmed down my panel to where I wanted it, made my marks on the fender, cut that. So we're just going to clean this inside flange up a little bit to get all of that extra material off of there. This way it doesn't get in the way when we're trying to butt our two panels up together. So I will clean that up real quick, and then we can start to position this and weld this guy up. All right. So now the gap on this, I know is not going to be perfect, but we just want to get it close so that it sits nice and flush, and then we can kind of manipulate the panel as we go to get it to sit the way that we want it to. So this side I'm going to let rest on that fender support that I showed you a minute ago, and then this side I'm just going to clamp together. Again, I'm not making that super tight. I don't want to distort the panel itself. Just want to get it lined up, comfortable. This side I'm going to use one of these guys, so I don't want to put too much tension on it. So the vice grip clamp tends to actually clamp down a little too much. So I'm happy with it there. We have a pretty small seam side to side. I'm confident I'll be able to weld that up without too much of an issue. So I will throw the ground strap on and start making this one piece. Okay, that edge looks good. Happy with it over here. So I'm going to weld it right on this side just to get it tacked, and then we'll use just a flathead screwdriver, preferably one that's not covered in metal shavings. And as we go, we'll just make sure that these are level. This way we don't have a big ridge when we go to clean this up and grind that weld. So I'm pretty happy with it there. Start to weld this. I did just want to mention real quick, I realize this is still a very small channel. A lot of the views that I get are probably from friends and family. It's because they're forced to watch. So if you are here at this point, thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying it. One person I did want to kind of give a shout out to, who I don't know but seems to watch every single video, is Greg Gonzalez. You're probably watching this one too. I just wanted to let you know that it means a lot to me that you're constantly watching, commenting. So thank you very much. So with that being said, let's stick this together. All right, so we got a few solid tacks on there. I'm going to take the clamps off. Give that a little time to cool. I'm actually going to use this guy just to kind of manipulate this edge here where the fender is, because it's got that, I don't want to say awkward, but the edge that we're working with is not as straightforward as the others. So give ourselves a little bit of an advantage here. All right, so we got a decent amount of this welded up. I'll let this cool for a little bit, and then I'll go back. I'm going to do the same thing, basically in between the welds that I already made. We'll just keep doing little dabs. Slow the better with this stuff, the less heat you actually pump into the product itself, and ultimately less body work you're going to have to do. I don't want a ton of waves in this panel, and in the past I haven't been the best as far as being patient doing this stuff, so try and turn over a new leaf here, see if it works out any better for us. But now you have a pretty good idea of what the next hour or so of my life is going to look like. I will turn the camera off and I'll bring you guys back when this is ground flush and ready for primer. All right, so our fender patch is done. I actually have one more small spot to do, and I'll show you guys right now. So this lip on the inside, I actually have to just weld that up, and then I will attach the outer fender to the brace on the inside, and then we can run our brace the rest of the way down where that was rotted out. But show you guys real quick. If we look along the surface itself, that is pretty good. I am very happy with that. I tried to take my time with this one, and I think it paid off. Rather than just dumping a bunch of heat into it, trying to get it welded up quicker. Little spots here and there, and pretty happy with that. Won't need much filler to get that looking correct, and hopefully it'll line up properly on the car. So with that done, I'm going to flip this over. Like I said, we're going to tack the brace on the inside to the outer fender, and then we'll figure something out to run that brace down to the bottom. We can get this in primer. I want to paint the inside, and then we'll have one fender done. So flip this around and get started on that. Okay, got the inside of the fender painted. I ended up just whipping up a quick bracket to replace that piece that was rotten on the inside, and threw a nice coat of paint on this, and I'll show you guys what we got. So this is the bracket that I just extended to the bottom. I actually did, you can see because I kind of missed with the paint a little bit, but there is a bend in that metal. So it kind of contours with that bracket right about to the mounting point. And then I kind of I should have probably taken a little bit more time and put another flange up to meet the fender. But instead, I kind of just threw a couple good tacks on there to keep the ridge of the fender to that bracket. So I'll touch that up with paint, but entire inner fender is done. So we'll let this dry. We'll come back tomorrow, and we'll hit this with the same epoxy primer, and we can cross one fender off the list. Okay, we got the driver's side fender in epoxy primer. Underside is also painted. I showed you that just before we threw the coat of primer on there. So next thing I want to do is actually attach this fender to the body of the car. Again, alignment doesn't have to be perfect, but I want it on there nice and secure so that I can start doing the body work once the rest of the primer is on. I may not have mentioned it when I pulled the nose off this car because I think we did it in a time lapse, but it had a bunch of random hardware in there that really didn't belong. And to go back and forth to the hardware store that many times to get the right hardware, I'll end up doing 40 trips. I know because I've tried it before. So I ordered the correct hardware for the radiator support. We can get rid of that clamp that's holding it on now. And then I got the correct hardware for the front end. So this does inner fenders, outer fenders, splash pan, pretty much everything you need to hang the nose on this car. So let's go out. We will install the radiator support hardware. Not going to tighten that up. I just want it bolted to the car that I can still manipulate it a little bit so we can get the fender lined up. And then we can start on the passenger fender after that, and then either the trunk or the hood. I don't know which one's going to be first. I don't want to do either one of them, so we'll see what happens. But let's go out there and get the, but for now, let's throw the rad support on, and we can go from there. All right, so I got the radiator support bolted to the frame. I realized that I was not recording, so we'll go over the instructions really quick. So this is from a seller, Crazy Light Chevy Parts on eBay. What's nice about these kits, I've ordered from him a couple times in the past for other cars. He will actually give you the printout from the GM assembly manual for the car itself. And this comes with some rubber shims, which I still have the spares in the bag here. We'll use those once we start to align the fenders. The correct carriage bolts to bolt that to the front of the frame, the locking plate, the bolts, pretty much everything you need to bolt whatever you're looking to bolt onto this car the way the factory did. So Rad support is on. I'm going to give this fender a little bit of time to dry. And once that's done, start going through this bag of hardware here and get this fender hung on the car, and we can move on to the passenger side. So I got the driver's side fender outside. I test fit that on the car. Pretty happy with the fitment. So now it is time to move on to the passenger side. And of course we have more issues on this one. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about. So I very crudely have the lower patch clamped in place. Now I took measurements on this one as well as the driver's side, and I actually laid passenger side next to the driver's side to make sure that the length is correct, and they are. But notice here, this patch is actually not long enough this way. Not really sure what happened. I bought these patches probably when I first bought the car, thinking that, you know, I would have needed them in a couple weeks. Here we are a year later. So I don't really have any recourse with this. Plus I already trimmed it in a few spots. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut the panel in half long ways, and just going to section it. I don't really have a choice at this point. I tried to see if there was a decently priced used fender anywhere near me. There's not, so we got to work with what we have. It's been the story from the get-go with this car. So I'm going to cut that. I think I'm going to section it. I'll probably weld both sides up, get it true to the fender, and then I'll measure out a patch in the middle and we'll weld that. But I got a couple hours of welding and grinding ahead of me. But yeah, hopefully we'll get this done, get it in primer. I want to hang both fenders on the car, tighten up a few of the body panels, and then I think we're ready to start body work after that. So I still have the trunk lid back there. I'm going to strip that down, knock all the paint off. We'll get that in primer. Hopefully that doesn't need any body work, but if it's like the rest of this car, which I have a feeling it is, it's going to need at least something. So we'll worry about that in a little bit. For now, let's get this fender set up. Okay, so I got either side of my patch welded on, and to get a template for the piece that we need to cut in the middle to kind of stitch these together, what I did was just took a piece of thin cardboard, slid it in between the two panels, and what I'll do is while I hold that in place, basically just trace the line on either side. All right, and then we can actually transfer this to a piece of new metal, and that should give us the exact size of the piece that we need to cut. So this will probably require a little bit of grinding and sanding, and it's going to be tough, or it's going to take a while to weld this because it's such a thin piece. I really don't want to warp it. But unfortunately, this is the hand we were dealt. So as far as I could tell, this is the best solution that I could come up with. So in between those black lines is the size of the patch that we need. So I'll transfer that to some metal, get that cut out, and then start stitching this thing back together. This car's like a giant quilt. All right, so I have all 3 patches tack welded in. So now it's just the time-consuming part to go through, weld this up, grind all the welds flush, and then try and line it up on the car, and hopefully it's closer than it was last time. But you can see down in the lower corner, I got it wrapped all the way around. So, like I said, we'll get the heat out of this thing and just keep welding and grinding. All right, so next on our list, I want to delete the hole for the antenna. So I already welded up the holes on the side that the bracket goes on. And then just made a quick plug. What I used was a 1-inch hole saw, drilled it at a piece of flat stock. I ended up welding up the center just so it was solid, and it fits in that hole pretty well. So I'm going to use a magnet to hold it in place. I'll get 1 or 2 tacks on there, and then we'll go around and just make sure that's flush with the rest of the fender. Sand that, and one more thing done for this. I did get the lower patch done. Not super happy with how this one came out. So that thin piece that I had to kind of section the patch with, and I kind of knew it was going to happen, but I ended up warping the panel pretty bad even though I went slow. So it is what it is. It's all metal. It won't take much filler to get it looking straight. If that panel was the correct size, we probably would have been in better shape, but it happens. So that's done. I'm going to weld this up now. I'm going to weld this up now. Then we can paint the underside of this fender, let that dry, prime the outside, and fenders will be done. So let's get this patch welded in. All right, antenna deleted. So we got one more spot we got to fix on this fender, and I'll show you guys that right now. All right, this section right here. So there's supposed to be a flat drop down panel that goes there, and there's a piece of stainless that connects to that and then wraps around and meets the grill. So obviously this one has seen better days, so I'm just going to cut that flush. I'll cut a flat piece of metal, kind of curve it up to meet around here. We can weld that in, and then I think we can finally cross this fender off the list. So I'll get that done, get this in a coat of primer, and then gotta figure out if I want to tackle the trunk lid for this video or not. We'll see what happens, but I'll get that done. We'll come back. Okay, get the inside of the passenger fender painted. I knocked down all the heavy rust. Didn't finish welding it yet, but I have that flat piece welded onto the side here to accept that piece of trim. I don't know if you could see it in that bottom corner there. I also extended the fender brace. So I still have to do a little bit of paint removal on the front of this fender. But maybe another half hour sanding, we can layer a coat of primer on that, and then this will be ready to go on the car. So the driver's side fender is hung on there already. I'll show you guys that really quick. This side of the car is pretty much complete. I have the fender hung on there with a bolt through the firewall, one through the rad support. Like I said, when that other passenger fender is done, we'll throw that on. I'll tighten everything up, kind of align it as best I can, and then we can start the body work. That's really the goal. I'd really like to get this thing, whatever filler it needs, and in a coat of high build sooner rather than later, because the temperature is rapidly dropping and my opportunity to paint this thing kind of shrinks every single day. So kind of on a time crunch with this. Worst case, if the weather does not cooperate and I have to wait till springtime to paint this car, I will, but I would rather not. But anyway, every day it's starting to look more and more like a car. And then I threw the trunk lid on the car, thinking that I was going to be able to knock that down today and get it aligned. But that is definitely not the case. That thing's going to need shims. It's going to need some body work on the bottom half because part of it is rotted out. So got another video of metal repair coming up. I don't know if it's going to be the next video. Might do something with the Corvette because it's been a little while since we've worked on that or even driven it. But we'll see what happens. I'll keep going on this. But that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I realize a lot of this metal repair and just constant small patches here and there are very frustrating, but we are making a lot of progress on the car. It's getting there. So, like I said, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys very much, and see you very soon.